What I want to show you now is going, quite honestly, to blow your mind. Going to seem really complicated and really out there. First of all, it is very doable. I'm going to show you actually how to set this thing up. But more importantly, I want this to open your mind to what is possible. The thing I'm going to show you how to automate now is something that a person can't do on a scalable basis. And certainly couldn't explain how to do it. So what I created was a system for automating getting PR for your business while you sleep, basically. Every single business can benefit from this. There's no business that should not take advantage of this, no matter what stage you're at. So I'll show you how this works. So there's a service called Help a Reporter Out, which is referred to as HARO. And basically it's a list, it's an email list that comes out every day, 3 times a day, with all sorts of reporters, journalists, writers, authors, whatever, who are looking for sources for some sort of story or book or something that they're putting together. So you might see a request from an article, someone's writing an article at Forbes and they want entrepreneurs who are stay-at-home dads who used to be lawyers, whatever it might be. And the idea is that they put these queries out, and if you fit the bill as a possible source, you write to them and say, hey, I'm that kind of a person, write about me. It's a perfect matching of a need with a provider. Typically there might be 100 requests in each email, and in a given week, there might be 1 or 2 stories that are actually applicable to you. Even if there are, you still have to pitch the reporter and they still have to pick you up. So the odds actually of getting hit are quite low. But it's a free resource, can't really complain about that. And I personally have gotten over 60 articles written about me over the last 7 years because of Help a Reporter Out, with very little effort. Now this has been something that several people have tried to optimize, automate, and outsource. And it's a really tricky one because 2 things. One, it doesn't make sense to pay somebody to do this for you because the hit rate is so low. The second part, though, which applies to both people and any kind of keywords or searches that you might put in, is that it's very tricky to figure out what you actually want to look for. It's like you know what an interesting pitch is, but you couldn't explain to somebody else what it is. So I might say, hey, anytime I see the word entrepreneur, I want to know about it. But the issue there is that if there's an article being written about entrepreneurs who've overcome chronic illnesses, and it's being written by somebody in Men's Health magazine, that might be nice, but it's really just for my ego if I went after that. It's not going to help me because it's not the audience that I'm going after. However, that same article is being written in Entrepreneur magazine or Inc. magazine that I do. And while I could make that as a parameter in keyword searches, there's a million different combinations like that. So it's almost impossible to describe to somebody exactly what the perfect kind of article is for you. Now, there is a way to use machine learning and a tool called MonkeyLearn wrapped into this automation platform, Zapier, to actually create a completely automated PR machine for you. So the first thing that we have to do before you can actually take advantage of this is teach the machine what's interesting and allow it to re-engineer or reverse engineer the algorithm that it will use to do that in the future. So there's a tool called MonkeyLearn. And the way that a lot of machine learning works in general, whether it's a robot that can cook for you or an algorithm that can make this kind of decision, is that you literally show it what different things are and you help it categorize things, or you show it with the motion, you show it how to cut a carrot, or in this case, what's interesting and what's not. So for example, you could take a whole bunch of pictures of cars and you could show the machine, you could say, this is an Italian car, this is a German car, and this is an American car. And if you do that enough times, it should be able to learn from that so that in 100 samples from now, if you show it a picture of a Chevrolet, it can say, that's an American car. And it should also be able to determine how accurate it believes it is. So I had a theory that turned out to work. I wanted to see if I could categorize HARO requests, help report out requests, as interesting or not interesting. So the first challenge here is that I had to get it into a format that was actually usable by both Zapier and MonkeyLearn, because it comes in these just sort of text emails. Fortunately, there are plenty of services out there that have now turned Haro requests into RSS feeds. And an RSS feed is just sort of what you get from a blog that produces new information. So it'll actually have each entry as a feed. So there's a service called Haro to RSS that I found. So I can take one of the feeds from here, and that's our RSS feed. And then I can feed that into MonkeyLearn, and it will show you a bunch of samples. And you can say, this one's interesting, this one's not interesting. And I can categorize it however I want. So interesting, not interesting, interesting, not interesting. They ask you to do a minimum of 40. I ended up doing it with 69 samples. And after 69 samples, it believes that it is 87% accurate in determining whether or not a query is interesting or not. Now, keeping in mind that because the interesting rate is so low, it does make this a bit more challenging. So the only thing you have to do there is just show it more. But if I show it 100 entries, maybe 5 or 6 will be interesting. It'd be different if it was 50-50. Then it would be really easy. It would be very, very accurate. There'd be a lot of data to go on. But if you have one of those where it's a really imbalanced sample set like this, you just have to do more samples. So once we do that, MonkeyLearn is done for now. It can just sit there and it's sort of created its classification tree. So now we come over to Zapier, and this is what Zapier looks like. Now I showed you with IFTTT, we have triggers and actions. Very similar setup with Zapier, but we have a lot more granularity of control, and we can do a multi-step zap all in once. So instead of with IFTTT doing one that goes to Twitter and the same one then that goes to LinkedIn and the same one that goes to Slack, we can do that all in one with Zapier. So we're going to start with the first trigger, and in this case, that first trigger is going to be a feed. And the RSS feed, we just got it from Haro, so the trigger is new item in RSS feed. There's the URL. We don't need a password or anything to access this. So what triggers a new feed item? Smart triggering is fine, done. And it'll allow you to actually test each step. So I'm going to test it here. It should fetch an existing example, which we can see. So that worked. We can see what the item is. So this is the item. Somebody is looking for writing an article about tech tools constantly changing. Perfect. Okay, so that step is done. Now once we have the feed, we want basically to have Zapier consult with MonkeyLearn. We're going to get our API key, which is a pretty common way that you connect these services. And there. Okay. So now MonkeyLearn is connected. And I called this this machine, or this project Haro in MonkeyLearn. So now we go back to Zapier, it's connected, go forward, and I'm going to use the classifier, which it will pull up automatically, and that classifier is going to be Haro right there. There we go. And then you choose the variable. So it's asking which text is going to be classified. So we don't want necessarily the title or the link. We want the description of the query. And there it is. Done. We can test this step. So it's going to test it. Test successful. Great. Now we only want to see these come through if they're actually interesting. So now I'm going to put a filter. Filter by Zapier. Only continue if, so we want it to be interesting. So we don't want to see it if it's not interesting. So only continue if the classified text, here, label 1, not interesting, does not contain not. So now we're only going to see items that are interesting. Now this is the fun part. We can decide what do we want to do with that information. We have a couple options. We can say, look, just tell me about the interesting ones, and that's all I want to see. So how do you want to know about it? Let's say I want to hear about it with Slack. So I'm going to add a step. I'm going to say I'm going to get a Slack message with just that particular query, send a direct message to me. And now at this point, I've effectively finished. So I've set up the automated PR machine to me, so I know what the items are. But now, if I wanted to, I can actually automate the pitch itself. So again, we could stop here. We could say, look, I'm just going to see there's 1 or 2 inquiries a week. I can craft a particular response and send it to the person. But if I want to take this even further, I can say, now I want to send a Gmail message. So send an email, and I need to put in the parameters. So the email is going to be to, and you can pull the email address right from the initial request. So it will actually pitch the reporter for me. And at the end of the day, what I should see is a reply from a reporter who is ready to interview me for a story that I'm interested in. And that didn't cost me anything. It will run 24/7 without stopping, and you will get more exposure for your business through an amazing automation like this. Now, keeping in mind, this seems crazy and complex. I basically just set this up for you in a few minutes. This is a live demo. So it just gets better and better. And at the end of the day, what I said is I want this to open your eyes to what you can possibly automate in your business. If you can automate this, think about all of the other things in your business that you actually don't need to be doing yourself.
The Foundr mission is to help you create an ass-kicking business and help you learn straight from the mouths of world-class founders. Get your free printed edition of Foundr magazine featuring Sir Richard Branson. Just cover shipping and handling at foundr.com/Branson.